Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last MoonLore video of 2021. We're here today, Jenny and I are here today to talk about the Gemini full moon, which happens on, fill in the blank, Jenny.
It's December 18th at 11:36 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you adjust that for your time zone.
Absolutely. Okay, so the full moon is the midpoint of the lunar cycle. Just to be really clear, the cycle, the lunar cycle is simply the relationship between the sun and the moon. That relationship starts anew every 28 days with the new moon. The new moon, you can equate this cycle to the plant cycle, the cycle of everything in life. Everything has a beginning, a full illumination, and an ending point. So the lunar cycle starts at the new moon, where we metaphorically plant a seed. A week later, we come to the first quarter moon, which is really a moment of some stress in order to continue the process going forward. And then a week after that, we come to the full moon, which is the full illumination of the cycle. A week after that, we come to the last quarter moon, which begins to really break down the process in preparation for the following new moon. So it's the cycle of everything in life. So this full moon reflects back to two interesting points. One is the new moon that happened on December 4th. That was an eclipse, right, Jenny?
It's a solar eclipse in Sagittarius. Yeah.
Right. And then if we go all the way back 6 months later to June 10th, what was that? That was also an eclipse, correct?
Yeah, that was also an eclipse. So this full moon is culminating both of those eclipse cycles. That one was June 10th at 19 degrees of Gemini. So new moon in Gemini.
Right. So I think that's, the most interesting thing about this particular full moon is that it brings into this culmination space both of these really powerful eclipses. So from there, the next thing we want to talk about is just the sign that this is falling in. It's falling in Gemini. So the sun is in Sagittarius and the moon is in Gemini. Do you want to open that chart, or is there something you want to talk about before we open the chart?
No, I think we can, let's open that.
Okay, let's take a look at what we've got here.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about this Gemini full moon, and we were talking a little bit before, because it was two solar eclipses that are sort of feeding into this full moon, both of those solar eclipses kind of implied endings, things you need to close down, things that need to be kind of looked at so you shut the door properly, rather than our usual new moon, which is starting something new. So this full moon is kind of a, I don't know, I feel like it's not an eclipse. So we're kind of getting to see what are the fruits of the labors of the work you did, the internal work you had to do. And you get to kind of celebrate it with this one. You're not going within with this full moon. This is just sort of a more simple full moon, and it's in Gemini. So it's like, hey, everybody, let's chit chat and, just be kind of lighthearted about it. So I really like that, especially because there's a lot of heavier things coming up. We see some of those reflected in this chart, but anyway, we'll talk about those. But on the whole, I feel like, just enjoy this one. Like have a good time, lively, and storytelling, and have fun.
Yeah, it's really kind of exciting to have it being the last one of the year, the first one after these, after these two cycles, bringing this culmination in. And in Sagittarius and Gemini, what can be easier and lighter and more fun than that, right in the middle of some of the other complexities. But that's really great. So what do we want to say about that polarity between Gemini and Sagittarius? They're both mutable signs, which means that they're really adaptable. Both of them can just kind of be in a lighter, easier place, in a place of adapting and just making space for a lot of conversation and a lot of opinions without getting offended by them. I guess that's how I think about it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny that the sun is always in Sagittarius, like in the Western world, like right during this holiday season. And so you're kind of leading up to the holidays and especially in the US of A, but other countries too. And, you know, going to parties and having a good time and all that kind of thing. And then right the few days before you actually come to the actual holiday, the sun drops into Capricorn. So much more serious and intense. So it's kind of funny how this, you always have Sagittarius season is kind of making that statement. And then you throw the Gemini full moon in there, and I just think Gemini is just kind of like that little wind sprite that dances around and moves quickly from item to item, and is, you know, kind of like networking and, you know, kind of shooting the shit with people. You know, so
yeah, this is really a great party. Great time for a party. It really is. You might regret what you did at the party by tomorrow morning, but that's a whole different conversation. This is on a Saturday night right before the holidays, so do enjoy it, and having some awareness as well that things do get heavier pretty quickly after this.
yeah.
But we do want to enjoy it. I think of, you know, that Gemini, just the sense of Gemini of gathering information and being just in that spirit of sharing, that spirit of the storyteller.
Yeah, the transmitting. And I
Yeah.
was thinking Gemini too, with it's, I mean, you can even see in its little symbol, it really deals with duality, like sort of the simplicity of just only two things. Like, so it's not a deep sign. It's not going into the depth. It's just keeping it light and fast, and it's
Yeah.
moving data around, and that's kind of its purpose.
Yeah.
And the archetypes are like the teacher. So if you think of the teacher, especially a school grade teacher, delivering information, like helping kids make connections, like in that sort of more simplistic sense. It's also the storyteller.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the ability to, I don't know, just share lighthearted stories is really what I always think about. And it's also the networker. So there you see the kind of just the moving bits of data around, and it's not a real emotional thing because it's an air sign. It's more aloof, and it maybe has a bit more objectivity to it.
Yeah.
So, and that's, yeah, and that's in contrast to Sagittarius. Sagittarius is a bit more broad-minded, a bit more
Opinionated as well.
Yeah, it is opinionated. It's also like not concerned with the nuts and bolts. It's more just like, hey, let's like talk about the big picture and
Right.
be philosophical, like wax philosophical in the hot tub.
Right. Right. Oh, I like it that you brought up the hot tub, because there we bring in, you know, the only challenging aspect to this, this full moon, and it's not in a real tight orb either, but it is present there as a square aspect to the opposition of the sun and the moon, is a square to Neptune. And, you know, I mean, you can think of that as if you're going to parties on Saturday night, you might want to be careful about substances that you indulge in. That would probably be the biggest concerning thing with that aspect.
Yeah.
How else would you think about that?
Well, I was thinking, I mean, you can lean into that a little bit. Like I think it's easy with the Sagittarius Gemini to maybe have a little bit of a sharp tongue and like be kind of maybe a bad cutting without realizing you're being insensitive. And I think if you allow the square from Neptune to just soften it a little bit, like just be aware of other people's feelings, have a little bit of a softer sense of in the mix when
I
you're
like that.
telling the story.
Yeah.
And if you don't, there's going to be consequences. That's the square. If you don't, you're going to hurt someone's feelings, and you're going to be like, oh crap, I have to work on that next time or whatever.
Right.
So
yeah, you know, yeah, Gemini and Sagittarius are not the signs that you would think of as being well known for compassion, or those types of things. So yeah, really maintaining some awareness of your impact on others. That's definitely the use for that Neptune there. Now, there's another aspect.
a nice aspect. The other.
This is just lovely, is the moon forms a trine, a really close trine to Jupiter, which is a sextile to the sun. So that's going to just encourage you to enjoy yourself more, tell bigger tales. You
Yeah.
know, this is the idea of, yeah, telling big stories and listening to big stories,
Yeah.
exploring bigger ideas, philosophical understandings. I love that.
Well, that's a great way to put it, Lori. I like that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really nice. I think about it because it's in Aquarius. It brings kind of brings the stories out to a little bit bigger level, like in terms of having a little more allegorical type of focus, like where your tale, in other words, the tale that you're telling is a common tale that people can relate to,
Oh,
and it
nice.
brings in a little more of
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
camaraderie. I think.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
I guess the other thing I want to mention is that the energy of this full moon, it's not like it's happens at 11 whatever p.m. and then it's done. That energy holds with us for a couple of days. So this is really, this is leading into the solstice point. I guess what I'm thinking about it as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking about the night of the solstice having, because I know I'm going to be at a great big fire outside, and I can just imagine this energy still being activated for the
Mhm.
solstice.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, because I mean, the moon itself is a pretty it is a ebullient, like
Yeah.
as I've been saying, sort of like go out, have a good time, be with friends, celebrate, share some stories, and then but then there's also some other components in this chart that yes that we must mention. Venus is conjunct Pluto in this chart, and in fact, the very next day on the 19th, Venus is going to turn retrograde.
Right.
So that's the beginning of Venus's necessary journey down into the underworld to wrestle with her values, to find integrity, and all these like much more serious concepts. And so
Yes.
there's no avoiding that this is part of this picture. It's just that
Right.
we don't have to focus on that for those couple days because there's going to be time to focus on that
Right, right.
coming up.
Yeah, Venus is going to be retrograde for 6 weeks. It's going to make contact with that Pluto 3 times. It is interesting that at the start of it, it is stationed right there on Pluto. And for any of you who are listening to this, please go track down our video that we made about Venus retrograde, because that is what this is leading us into. Yeah, we kind of get led into it with this buoyant, happy moment. And then, it's not that Venus retrograde is an unhappy moment, but it's a time that we really have to get serious and dig into really understanding ourselves on a much deeper level as we go into that underground place before that Venus shows up um, many weeks later as the morning star.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I think that's part of what I was thinking about with this chart is that the sun and the moon are in both in sort of yang signs, expressive, outward, you know, interact with other people, work out in the world that you're doing. But then that Pluto Venus is total opposite of represents the much more deep internal work. And I just think so much of life it's those two forces. There's the inner stuff and then what you're doing out in the world.
Yeah.
And what I like this full moon because it brings in that more outer
Yeah.
perspective because there's a lot of other things you can get a little bit lost in. I mean, necessary work, necessary things, but you got to enjoy
It's
yourself.
also, yeah, it's also necessary to go to that party and engage with people and have a good time. It's really necessary in this incredibly, yeah, speaking from being in Vermont, this incredibly dark period of time. It's
Mhm.
it's dark by 4 o'clock. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So just to mention really quickly the path of the moon since the new moon, you look at this and the moon has gone over all the planets. It's picked up the energy of everything in order to come to this moment except Mars. And just to touch very briefly on the fact that Mars is right there conjunct the south node, how do you think about that, Jenny?
Well, those I'll just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Oftentimes the South Node can refer to kind of regressive behavior, like patterns of old that might have something good about them, but are also largely things that need to be worked through and released.
Mhm.
And having
Mhm.
Mars there makes it a little angry, perhaps. Like might be really easy
Yeah.
to act on some old pattern that you're not quite conscious of.
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit of like a you know, what are those patterns, and heads up. I mean, I think of it as like almost you're at the party having a great time, and then that person shows up who you have a little bit of an argument with. And because
You had a little too much to drink.
exactly because of the Neptune. And so
Right.
then you end up in an argument, which is an old pattern with this
Yeah.
person. And just to recognize you don't have to, like,
Right.
there are options if you are aware. And
Right.
that's kind of what I think it brings in.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. Well, I think that's really perfect. And I think it's really interesting because what I notice as you're saying that is that Jupiter, which is in configuration here, is actually rules both Pisces and Sagittarius. So it's ruling both of these planets. So there's a connection there between the part that may be challenging for you at the party, which is being unconscious about that pattern. So yeah, stay awake, go to the party, enjoy yourself, don't drink too much, don't do substances that are going to put you in a space where you're not conscious if something from the past of your own patterns shows up. Enjoy yourself, allow yourself to have a great time, but stay awake and aware. I think that's as simple as I can think it through.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So do you want to talk about the individual impacts of this? I'd like to keep it as simple as we can, but I'd like to do that.
Yeah. I think let's do that.
Let's drop that chart out of there.
Okay.
They can
Dropping.
just look at us instead.
Yeah. Okay. So you want me to kick it off, Lori?
Sure. You can kick it off.
So if you have Aries rising, this Gemini full moon is going to be illuminating something in your third house. So I think in terms of just the simple need to communicate, like what are your needs? What do you need to communicate? And just understanding that when you're communicating that, that this is what you need to do for your own emotional health and well-being.
Yeah. In the third house, it's just the most natural place for it to be. It's like talk. Go to that party and have a good time. Talk to everybody that'll listen to you.
That's right. So if you have Taurus rising, the full moon will fall in your second house. It also means the sun will be in your eighth house. So I mentioned that. And so this is a little something about communicating out of your sense of self-reliance. Like trust that as you communicate what's important to you, that you're able to kind of navigate the quagmire of other people's values and emotional intensity and baggage. Yeah.
So yeah, you're really, you're in a position where it's a little more serious than if you got Aries rising. So if you've got Taurus rising, yeah, your communication comes more from a place of your values, wanting to share your values.
Yeah, nice.
If you find yourself talking about how much money you spent on the gifts you're buying, that's another point altogether.
Yeah, reel it back.
Reel it back.
It's kind of fun thinking of each of these like as if you're at the party.
Right, exactly.
Well, if you have Gemini rising, this full moon is going to be illuminating something in your first house. I mean, that's the house of self. And just it's something like recognizing that how you communicate or what you're communicating is a reflection of your fundamental self. So just kind of relaxing into that and allowing that to be, and in your any one-on-one discussions you're having with your partner or your loved ones, just kind of relax into that. Like you don't worry too much about it. Just have your communication.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Gemini rising. So you are the natural storyteller. So at that party, tell your stories. And if they happen to be about you, that's fine. That's as it should be. Talk about, allow yourself to freely talk from your own experience.
Yeah, great. If you have Cancer rising, it takes on a trickier tone to talk about because you're going to fall in your 12th house. So now we're talking about that area of life that refers to things like selfless service and suffering and compassion and these like bigger meta level concepts. And so you really do need to think about your communication and how it ties into that, maybe as a way to help relieve suffering, the way you talk, the stories you tell, kind of have that focus of wanting to relieve suffering and help others. Kind of has that to it.
Yeah, you might find yourself talking at the party with someone about your therapist or what you're doing in therapy, or something that you've recently read that really resonates with something that's going on some very deep level for yourself. So those are the topics you're going to be more inclined toward.
Nice.
Huh.
Um, so if you have Leo rising, I'm thinking about just Leo, the performer, being the ruler, being at the ascendant of your chart, it puts the Gemini moon in the 11th house. So this is very much about using your communication to build a web of allies, like communicating your stories with joy in order to build connection with others.
Right.
So,
Right. So you're going to be at the party and gathering everyone around you because you're the performer. You've got that Leo rising. You're going to be gathering the whole community around you to talk about the community itself, to reflect back what is happening in the community. That's a fun one.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. With Virgo rising, this is falling in your 10th house of profession and work. So the full moon is illuminating that. So I was thinking about something like communicating what you need at work and trusting that you're going to be able to finish the project you need to finish, even if you take time off, or even as you take time off to share tales and good times with friends and family. So it really is speaking about this work-life balance or work-family balance.
Yeah.
With the Gemini moon falling into the house of profession. So,
Okay, so I'm going to bring us back to the party, and I'm going to say you're going to be talking about your career in some way. Maybe you'll meet someone at the party that can be a co-collaborator with you on some new idea you have about your career. So that's a focus you can take.
yeah, it's great. Okay, so with Libra, this full moon in Gemini is going to fall in the 9th house. I kind of went thinking a little more about the mind and the mindset rather than communication here. So using your mind to travel to other countries and places in your quest for emotional expansion experience.
Oh, I like that.
So I think it's something, back to being at the party. But it's like talking to somebody who's totally foreign to you that you've never talked to before, you know nothing about. Maybe they look different or seem different to you, and striking up that conversation and having fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you'll be at the party, exactly, talking to the person who is culturally the most unlike yourself, or you'll be talking about your recent travels or ideas like that. Yeah, talking about your philosophical ideas.
Yeah, I like that. Cool.
Oh, I want to go to a party with one person from each rising sign. Wouldn't that be fun?
Figure out who's who.
Right.
So let's see. So Scorpio, with that mysterious Scorpio as your ascendant, it's going to put that Gemini moon in your 8th house. So this is another place where you're going to have to, it might be Gemini, but you're going to have to do a little depth here.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about creating some kind of ritual that will help keep you feeling good and clear before you go to the party or before you interact with relatives or so on around the holidays. This is something just understanding what kind of triggers you and then taking steps ahead of time to create a little ritual so that you can navigate that better and have a happier experience at the party.
That's awesome. Or you're the person at the party who hands out you can tell what kind of parties I go to, who hands out little pieces of paper for everyone to write down what they're going to let go of in the new year, and they throw that paper in the fire, right? It's like creating a ritual for that's interesting. Creating a ritual is a wonderful way to use that full moon.
Yeah.
I love that.
Great.
I love that ritual with the 8th house. I think that's such an important piece.
Yeah, it can be very helpful. I don't know if you've ever tried it, but if you are, try it out because it can be extremely helpful.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if you've got that Scorpio rising, do create some sort of a ritual here to understand where you're at and what this is about.
Anything, but anyway. So let's see, Sagittarius, we are looking at the 7th house. So this is the opposite. This is the house of your partnerships, your very important, intimate one-on-one people. So this is communicating clearly with your partner. I mean, maybe they don't want to go to the party, but you want to, so do
Right.
it. Or maybe they want to come with you, but you kind of want to work different sides of the room. Like, great, have a great time, and just trust how much that'll improve your relationship.
Yeah.
Because then you have some, I don't know, just the way you share experiences afterwards and create more joy in your relationship. So,
Yeah, the party itself is going to somehow be supportive of the relationship. Maybe if you go without your partner or you're single, maybe you might meet somebody at the party that really resonates strongly with you, or you might find yourself having conversations at the party about relationship itself.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. There's that.
Yeah, there's that.
So Capricorn rising, we're looking at the 6th house, Gemini falling in the 6th house. And I just think about this as there's always something about self-improvement with the 6th house. So maybe this is a way that you can recognize how much you have improved your ability to communicate, and kind of using your newfound skills at the party. It speaks to a lot of like communication is a day-to-day thing, as a matter of routine. And just having to kind of incorporate that constantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and back to the party. You might be at the party talking about the new routines and rituals you've put in place in your life that are supporting you, anything along those lines.
Yeah. All right. So with Aquarius rising, this is going to fall into your 5th house. And I just thought of this as simply tell those you love how much you love them with no uncertainty, and realize that as you express this, you're also going to receive so much love in return. So it's pretty safe, straightforward.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. And if you're at the party, you might be talking a lot about your kids, about your love affairs, about some creative project that you're involved in. It's really communicating love in whatever fashion.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And then finally, we have Pisces. And with Pisces, the full moon is going to fall in the 4th house. This is very much about communicating with your family members what you need to do it. Sometimes this time period can be very sticky and entangled and messy. And so it's about that, preemptively communicating what you need. And keeping stories and laughter at the forefront with your family too. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
That's really important. And, maybe your party, for those with Pisces rising, maybe the party itself is just family members.
Mm-hmm.
If not, you're going to be thinking about and talking about family members and family dynamics at that party. There,
Yeah.
I like the party idea. And I love the idea of having a gathering of 12 people, each with one rising sign at a particular point, like a lunation or something, and trying to guess by the conversations what rising sign they are. I just love that idea.
Yep, that really is walking to the realms of our astrology nerddom.
Yeah, there's that as well. Okay, I think this is everything we wanted to say. I feel like I'm missing something, but I can't remember what it is, so we'll let it go. Anything else you want to say before we close it down?
No, I think I really do think we've said it all. We've passed on the idea of the lightheartedness, but also recognizing there's a little bit heavier things to come. So it's both, and appreciating that contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you, Jenny. And if anyone wants to make an appointment with you, where can they find you?
Find me at hiddenpathastrology.com, and still have a sale on gift cards for a couple more days until the solstice.
All right. And you can find me at astrolore.org. And yeah, be in touch with both of us around teaching, around consultations, whatever you need. And we will see you in the new year.
Sounds great. Thanks, Laurie. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye-bye.